Hey guys, it's Dunmere. Welcome back to the channel. We are going to talk about the Halloween Festival patch and how all the Pokemon are shaping up in a tier list. So, I'm going to run through this. I'm going to talk about where I place all the Pokemon, and I'm going to run through the balance patch notes also and tell you if it's changed my mind about any of them. So, starting off, we're going to go with Pikachu. Um, Pikachu with the new balance patch has its thunder damage increased and its volt tackle damage increased. Now, the thing about this is that Pikachu didn't exactly really have a high place in the meta to start with. Um, and I honestly just don't think the numbers are going to be quite enough to change it. Pikachu doesn't quite have something to its kit that's so inherently powerful that changing raw numbers will actually make it particularly stronger. Um, and so for this reason, I'm going to put Pikachu in the good category. Um, like I said, I'd like to be able to put him a little bit higher, but we're gonna put him in the good category. The lower portion of the good category. So really be towards the end of it. I'm gonna try and estimate these also in comparison to the other Pokemon in the category. So, but for now, Pikachu low good. All right, moving on. Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales is in the top of good. Um, Alolan Ninetales has a lot of stun capabilities, good damage overall, but it does find itself lacking a little bit with abilities to steal the objectives. So that can put a little bit of a harm to it in comparison to some other Pokemon like Cinderace or Greninja. So next is Gardevoir. Gardevoir, I'm gonna put it about in between Pikachu and Ninetales. It is powerful in the right hands, but it does have a lot of limitations, namely that it develops quite slowly. It doesn't quite hit some power spikes until later in the game. But if you do manage to get some good XP, get a few picks early on, it becomes a super strong character that has a very powerful ultimate, lots of high damage abilities with stuns. So it's a little bit variable here, but I would say that it does still end up being in between about Ninetales and Pikachu in the good category. Moving on to Cinderace. Cinderace is in the very top of very good. Um, Potentially even in the crazy broken category. I'd actually put Cinderace in the low crazy broken category. Cinderace has extremely high damage, especially with some of the nerfs to Greninja. In comparison, it has execution damage on its ultimate. It has, whether you go with the Blaze Kick and Feint moveset or Pyro Ball ability, it either has like a large amount of damage to kill and finish off kills, or it has huge abilities to dodge enemy cooldowns with Feint, and then use Blaze Kick to maintain that distance and stun. It's a very powerful Pokemon overall. Cramorant. Cramorant is a little bit interesting because Cramorant is both quite powerful and weak. And it basically depends on whether you're playing on mobile or Switch. The mobile version of Cramorant is vastly more powerful. You do have an extremely stronger ability to use its dive to rotate to different locations. And if you're playing with Cramorant on mobile, I'm going to say very good. And that's where we're going to end up putting him towards the bottom of very good. Um, but if you're playing on Switch, I put him more towards above Ninetales. But we're going to put him in very good, considering we are balancing this based off of solo gameplay. Solo gameplay in addition to solo gameplay on mobile. Granted, most of these Pokemon don't actually have that much of a difference between mobile and Switch, but Cramorant does have some big differences, and therefore he is ascending the huge gap 2.0 to get up to very good. Greninja is also still in very good. It's about as good as Cramorant is. It's still very powerful. It got huge nerfs, and that's why it's descended has past this huge gap section, but it is still very strong. Lots of damage. Really pretty good secure, and good laning ability and jungling. So that's where we're putting Ninja with either of his two sets of movesets, either with the Water Shuriken or the Surf ability. Sylveon. Um, Sylveon is in the absolute top of good. Um, it wants to be somewhere in this huge gap, but that's not a section, that's a gap. Because that's about how this game tends to run out, tends to have these huge gaps between the different ranks. Um, but Sylveon is definitely in the top of very good. Sorry, in the top of good. With its mystical fire setup. Hyper Voice quite weak. Hyper Voice is gonna be definitely in the meh, but with mystical fire it's on top of good. Its ability to use its protective ability to tank cooldowns and hit them with mystical fire is quite good. It's not nearly as strong as it was before the nerf, which was rather quick and strange, but I'd still put it in the very top of good. About comparable to these other Pokemon here. And its ultimate's also quite powerful. But it does have some of these similar issues of lacking a good ability to finish off the targets, the Dreadnought and the Zapdos. That's where they're most important in the game currently. So that's how that is. So moving on to our next nerf, we are getting, with Venusaur, Giga Drain HP recovering is being decreased. And its Solar Beam damage is increased. I think this is going to take Venusaur from being arguably the second best character in the game, right behind Lucario, to the very top of very good. I just think it's still going to be amazing. Timmy tends to have an issue with nerfing characters, but just not nerfing them enough or not buffing them enough. So very good is where it goes. Top of very good. I don't think that that's going to be any different from that. Especially when we see the meta shaping up, I think it'll maintain its position to very good. It will have lost some of its other abilities to be crazy broken with some of the damage it's healing itself, but unless the numbers are just actually shaping up to be, you know, like a 50% reduction in HP gain, then I just don't see it being any different from this. All right, so that was all the attackers. Moving on to the speedsters. We're going to start off with Zeraora. Zeraora is the strongest speedster, and I'd say it's more towards the bottom of Crazy Broken, but it is extremely powerful. It has a super high damage ultimate. It has a very powerful discharge ability that just mass damages enemies around it and gives it shields in the process, and it has a large amount of mobility. And if you get skilled enough with its ultimate, you can steal objectives with it quite well. So Zeraora is the best speedster for sure. Then I would say I would like to rank these real quick in regards to like how I think they are. Talonflame is the next best. Talonflame is probably towards the bottom of very good. It's one of the more niche and balanced characters in the game, I would actually say. In regards to its actual like setup and gameplay. It has very high damage, but very low HP and defenses. So if you mess up your engagement, you die instantly. Definitely run the Fly Flame Charge setup. You can go ahead and give it a shot with the Brave Bird setup on mobile, but definitely not on Switch. Regardless, I would say still in the right hands, it gets towards the, you know, it's getting towards the top of very good. In the wrong hands, it drops down to good. But your average player is going to be in the bottom of very good. Gengar is in the top of good, I would say. It's definitely not as good as anywhere near Zeraora. Not as good as Talonflame. It doesn't do as much damage in burst. It doesn't have the sort of invulnerability that Fly does with Talonflame. And comparably to the other two, it's just not nearly as good. However, Absol is Absol is in the heavy meh category, actually. The top of meh, I would say. I used to think Absol was quite good, and then I started playing it some more, and I just realized that even though it has great ability to hit dash resets and huge critical hit damage and huge damage, it actually suffers severely due to all the stuns in the game and the finickiness of the way that pursuit works. You do have to hit things in the back, but there's often times where they just don't end up having that work out with the way that the ability ends up functioning. So I am dropping Absol down to the top of meh. Someone who's put a lot of practice into them, I could see them becoming in the top of good, but I just don't use this character. Just don't. There's better characters. Talonflame's way more fun. Better, much better. When you learn a decent amount on him, and Zeraora is just drastically better. I found myself consistently having the AI for, sorry, not the AI exactly, but just the way that the pursuit auto attacks work. I found I'm just consistently missing. I found myself getting stunned up in the middle of my abilities, and is just suffering. I couldn't properly do anything on this character essentially. So yeah, moving on to the all-arounders. Garchomp is getting changed. Basic attack speed increased, Dragon Rush damage increased. He's still Garchomp. I'm sorry, guys. There's just something about him. The damage numbers would have to be increased drastically, absolutely drastically, for him to become more powerful. He will still be garbage. Sorry. He suffers from having an incredibly long time to level up. He's still not even powerful when he gets to his top level. He doesn't have good secure and objectives, and he's just vulnerable to one of the most powerful things in the whole game, which is just stuns. Charizard, I'm putting Charizard in the very top of good. Charizard has definitely gotten some huge buffs. Very good Charizard players would, be in the bottom of very good, but Charizard itself is just the top of good. Machamp, I would put at the bottom of very good. It's just powerful. It's very powerful. It doesn't quite have any sort of massive capabilities like Lucario does. But it has very powerful secure, good tankiness early game and late game, solid damage all around, solid utility, good character. And for the last of the all-arounders, we have Lucario. I just cannot believe that they will nerf him enough that Lucario will be garbage. Just the way that he is, regardless of how the damage stats work and all this, he still has some of the highest inherent damage of the game with Power Up Punch, the highest mobility in the game, a million dash resets, massive tankiness. I'm gonna go ahead and put him on the. There's just no way he doesn't drop from Crazy Broken. The last nerf that they gave him dropped him down about. It was literally like 50 damage. It was very embarrassingly low. Lucario will still be Crazy Broken, for sure. I'm gonna still put him as the best character in the game. Lucario is so inherently crazy before any sort of nerfs they do to him that there's just such a limited chance that he'll actually be nerfed down to a lower value. All right, moving on. Moving on to supports. Let's start off with Mime. Mime is just not even really a support. He's just a massive damage dealer with a great ultimate. I'm going to put him in very good next to Machamp. I'm sure there's some. Actually, I put him about in between Greninja and Gramorant. There's a lot of damage, like a very high amount of damage. Maintains his skill the whole game. His ultimate is very high damage, very high CC. Just very good overall. Blissey, I'm also putting it up in very good. Very good, I say, right behind Machamp. It has huge abilities to pocket teammates, and its ultimate does super high carry potential with if you pop it onto a carry. You have limited ability to steal objectives yourself, but if you get good enough with the ultimate, you can carry games and carry and steal the objectives. But that's his biggest issue. Eldegoss, I'm going even more and more of an appreciation for. I'd still say it's a very bottom of very good, just particularly because it is a support, but it's still very powerful. Just the way the shields are constantly being put in on enemies could just turn fights drastically. If you're playing in a team, all the supports, not including Mr. Mime, because Mime's just a damage dealer, are going to jump up a bunch, like a whole section essentially. So Mime, Blissey would drop up here. Eldegoss would drop up here. Actually, I do think Eldegoss is better than Blissey right now. They're about the same though. So yeah. Eldegoss could also cheekily steal objectives with her ultimate too, so that's really useful. Just keep that in mind whether you should be using it for your teammates or for stealing. Wigglytuff. top of good. Rollout, as you all probably know, I'm a rollout Wigglytuff player originally, and she's just not nearly as good as she was. The damage is huge dropped. So for rollout Wigglytuff, she's pretty garbage. But her better setup is is still garbage. It's just not as good as these other abilities. I still put her in the top of good though, because she's not horrible. She's just not nearly as good as she used to be. So moving on to the last section we have here. Not sure if I missed any changes to any characters. I don't think so. I've not. I have not. Just want to make sure. Let's start off with Snorlax. Snorlax, top of good. Actually, middle tier good. Yeah, no, it's definitely worse than these ones. Not as good as Gardevoir is. In team environments, it's excellent. It definitely would jump up to the top of very good, but soloing or even playing in a duo, it's just not good enough. Very low damage for yourself. The enemies can walk out of your stuns often with the abilities that they have. But mainly it's just you can't steal and carry objectives yourself. That's the biggest issue with Snorlax. On top of the fact that they just nerfed him and it takes forever for him to clear any sort of mobs and anything like that. Doesn't have quite the raw, just I could do whatever I want abilities that like a lot of other characters of the game can. Crustle, I would say top of good, about as good as Wigglytuff. Good Crustle players will get to be higher, but average Crustle player is good. Really good mobility. A solid attack with either set up that it has. Although don't play X Scissor into Wigglytuff, or you'll have a hard life for sure. Top of good. Its ultimate also is just extremely powerful, and whenever it pops its ultimate, it jumps to the top of very good for sure. But otherwise, it's lower than that. So yes, but you just have to use your power spikes with the ultimate in particular times when you want it, particularly like in important fights. And going to Slowbro got some changes. Amnesia cooldown decreased and HP gained increased. Let's put him here at the top of good. Slowbro's never been a particularly good character. It's a very niche based character that doesn't have a particular strengths, other than just being like a little tanky demon running around. Yeah, you can do some cheeky things with them. You can steal kills on enemies that you shouldn't really be able to get, but you're gonna find yourself missing the capability of other characters like Blastoise. It's a lot of times. So he's just gonna be at the top of good still. Actually, we're gonna put him down more towards like below Gengar. If the buffs are enough, then we're gonna put him above. But no. And next character that got a change, Blastoise. Hydro Pump damage decreased, Water Spout cooldown decreased, Hydro Typhoon damage decreased. So it's a nerf to his ultimate and Hydro Pump, but a buff to his Water Spout. That's pretty substantial. Blastoise was sitting earlier, like originally he was in the very, 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 very top of very good. Then he got nerfed and he dropped down to the bottom of very good. And then he got more nerfs, and I want to put him at like should be in the gap, but obviously we can't put anybody in the gaps. So we're putting him at the top of very good. Still better than Crustle. I don't think the damage nerfs are going to be too substantial. And his ultimate is just very good for CCing things, but it just really depends on how they particularly nerf it. If you find his ultimate being very weak, then he'll be garbage, to be honest. If his ult got anywhere near like a 40% nerf, then it'll be actually just garbage tier in like the bottom of good levels. Mamoswine is in the Garchomp category. I think Mamoswine's better than Garchomp, but still absolute garbage. For Greedent, I just cannot believe that Greedent will be as bad as Mamoswine was when it was released. So I'm gonna put Greedent in the bottom of very good. Actually, I'd say it's gonna be about as good as it'll be slightly above Eldegoss. I'm gonna go on a limb here a little bit and say that's about how it's good as it will be. So, yeah, that's it, guys. That's my perspective on how things will go. the patch drops in a few hours from now from when I'll post this video, but I'm extremely confident that things will be about as I said. If anything is drastically different, I will post a little edit to this video so that you guys can make sure you have up-to-date information. But I just want to get this out as soon as possible so that you guys could have early information going into this. I felt very confident about the way that I estimated things last time when I made a video like this. So, or sorry, when I was estimating what I thought the changes would be, and I tend to be correct about these things. So yeah, here's your video, guys.